This is a Best Syndication News video production. On October 24th, 2007, we sat down and talked to 59th Assembly District Assemblyman Anthony Adams. We discussed our water shortage problems and solutions. Adams said that this solution will involve a collaborative effort between Northern and Southern California. We also discussed the wildfires that were sweeping through Southern California. I asked if there was a problem concerning the environmentalists and others who have their own agenda as opposed to the agenda of those living in the wilderness. Adams believes there may be accommodations made by all involved that helps provide for conservation and the rights of those living in rural areas. Although illegal immigration is primarily a federal concern, Adams believes there are actions the state of California can take to alleviate the flow of illegal immigrants. Although employer enforcement is imperative, Adams believes it is more important to secure the border. The assemblyperson talked about methods of identifying citizens as a way of combating illegal immigration and also protecting Californians against terrorists. When asked what issue is most important, Adams said illegal immigration. Here is that interview. On to illegal immigration. I know it's basically a federal issue, but is there anything that the state should do or can do or
Absolutely.
that you're working on?
Oh, absolutely. Let's be clear on this. Immigration is an incredibly important issue, arguably the most important issue facing California. Why is that the case? Because we need to know that we're secure in our own land. And the immigration issue isn't just an immigration issue, it's a border security issue. And we have systematically failed to secure our border. We have a porous border that allows people to come in here without regard to who they are or what their intentions are while they're here. The vast majority of Californians come to the same consensus that we are not opposed to immigration. Most people understand that we want to have people in our fields working, we want to have people in our factories working. We're not opposed to that. But what we object to is the idea of being here illegally. When you cross that border illegally, we don't have any record that you're here. We have no way of knowing whether or not what you're trying to do is something as noble as try to provide for your family or something as destructive as commit crimes against our residents and do real physical harm. Our prisons are so overpopulated with illegal immigrants right now, it is absolutely catastrophic. We have 174,000 prisoners housed in state prison beds. We expect about 20 to 22,000 of those are illegals. It is a staggering number that we have to take care of. And when you consider that the federal government pays us just a pittance on the dollar for every illegal immigrant in our prison, despite the responsibility they have to reimburse us fully for those costs, think about the burden that is on California taxpayers. We spend almost $1.2 billion a year housing illegal immigrants because we did not get fully reimbursed as we're supposed to from the federal government. So the federal government has let us down in terms of their reimbursement costs for housing illegal immigrants, and they've let us down by not securing our border, which means we have an opportunity to do something about that. And Governor Schwarzenegger has worked very hard to activate the National Guard and put them along our southern border particularly, and along some of our coast areas, because we do receive a tremendous amount of immigration from the Pacific Asian Rim. And now most people are not aware, but the vast majority of the folks working in our factories who are illegals come from that area of the world. So we have basically an assault on two fronts of this state, and if we don't do something proactive like the governor has with the border security that is being used via the National Guard, then we are not going to be able to be successful. But at some point, this state is going to have to come to the hardcore realization that we do not have the capacity to, quote, kick everybody out. I'm telling you something, Dan. We have, like I said, 174,000 people in our prisons. Our prisons are vastly overcrowded, and every day we're faced with the real prospect of having to early release people because we just don't have room for them. Now consider this. In California, we have estimated 4 million illegal immigrants. So if there are 4 million illegals and our entire prison is overpopulated at 174,000, what is the realistic prospects of gathering everybody up and sending them out? It just is unrealistic. But does that mean we get to ignore the problem? No. We have a responsibility to protect our citizens, and we need to do so at every turn.
So you're more concerned with border security rather than a crackdown on employers?
I absolutely am. I think a crackdown on employers is important. It's one of probably the three most important components of effective immigration reform. But make no mistake about it, cracking down on employers doesn't mean a darn thing if you're going to leave the border open. And in fact, arguably what you get by cracking down on employers is employers who have crops that are falling by the wayside in the fields, messing up our economies, devastating those farmers and the ability to provide the jobs for all people, at the same time that you still have people coming in from the Asia Pacific Rim and from our South American neighbors coming in with their gangs and with their drugs and with all the things that cause them to actually cause real substantive harm here. So why would we lose the very best of what immigration gives us while promoting the thing that is the most destructive? We need a more comprehensive approach.
Was there a third issue on that?
You bet there is. The third issue is we have to get, finally, a sense of who is actually here. We're going to have to get to a place where we can do it, whether it's through personal identification, we make it available for people to come and actually personally identify without fear of being immediately deported, or whether it be through some biometric system where you actually get a fingerprint or use a scan of your retina, whatever the case may be. We need to know who's actually in our country. It doesn't benefit us one iota to think there are so many people here but not know. At a time when we know that it is incredibly easy for somebody to strap a nuclear weapon to their back and walk into our country, and we know the people out there in the world would love to do us real physical harm. Can we really afford not to know who's in our country?
Okay, on to the fires in Southern California right now. Now, a lot of people complain that environmentalists may be causing some problems with this area. They don't want to clear out the brush. They don't want to mess up the forest at all.
Right.
Well, what's your opinion on that? Is there anything that can be done?
Well, first of all, that's absolutely true. For many, many years now, we have had this constant battle with people who claim to be environmentalists. And all they really want to do is just lock down public lands and preclude the public from being on them. Let me tell you something. We're the real conservatives in the fact that we care the most about conservation for conservation purposes. To preserve that so that we can all enjoy it, not to lock it off for the rest of the world in this kind of museum-like quality. By not allowing people to go in there and engage in active deforestation for the purposes of protecting our forest, by not allowing them to go in there and do real mitigation, by trying to preclude people from being involved in hunting and other sportsmanlike activities, stuff that actually has a real impact on our quality of life and the ability to effectively manage our resources and our wildlife, rather than allowing them to do those things, they've tried to stop those things. And we've seen what the consequence of that is. We've seen increased threat in terms of fires. We've seen animals that are displaced, have no place to go and end up in people's backyards and unable to find food for themselves because they're so overpopulated. It is a host of problems that occur, and not the least of which is we have actually made it impossible for our own folks to be able to recreate in our, quote, public areas. They now have to travel hundreds of miles to go away to find some place that they can legitimately spend time with their family recreating. That's ridiculous. When in our own backyard are these incredible resources that we should be opening up to people and making available. Yes, the so-called environmentalists have really done us a disservice in that regard. Having said that, though, some amazing things have happened, unfortunate, but have had a positive impact nonetheless. Things like the drought conditions and the bark beetle have really caused us to have to push away a lot of those so-called environmental concerns and really get back to basics in terms of deforestation and to the real need to thin out our forests and to make them safe. Right now on Lake Arrowhead, everything is burning down. And in Running Springs, things are burning down. All over the place, things are burning down. But I would posit that but for the amazing work we did, the county did, and that Southern California Edison did, of really helping remove so much of that dead wood, the level of catastrophe that we see now would have been 3-4 times more. And so it's not a perfect situation, but it's a better situation because of the active engagement in terms of the forest management that we've engaged in. But you're right, it's been a frustrating battle having to fight people who claim to have the best interests of the forest at heart, but absolutely do not.
Is the governor and you doing anything about this?
The governor has been kind of lukewarm on it. He wants to position himself as kind of this champion of the environment.
This has been a Best Syndication video production.